Yeah, so I'm doing biomed at Monash. So yeah, what's like the kind of differences? It's separated into 4 units. 3 of those units are STEM, so everyone kind of does it, and one of them's like an elective, so you can choose. It's all kind of like predominates around biology and medicine. So you kind of do anatomy, physiology, looking with cells. It's kind of like a nice like extension of biology that you do at school. Yeah, so we do labs every week. You also do lectures. So you get lectures is like your content, and then you kind of apply it through labs, through workshops. Yeah, so it's a good opportunity to like focus in on kind of like the biology side and then connecting it with medicine. Yeah, so that's about it, I reckon.
Yeah. Sorry, I probably should have introduced you guys as well. I completely forgot about that. So yeah, Jack, thanks so much. You're at doing biomed at Monash, and Jamo, if you just quickly introduce yourself.
Yep. Hey guys. So I'm Jamieson. I was class of 2015 with Strathia. I completed a Bachelor of Science at the University of Melbourne, majoring in neuroscience and physiology. And then afterwards, I completed an honours research year, and currently working in research. So the structure of classes at Melbourne, very similar to what Jack said, starting with, so like a science subject generally has 3 lectures a week. That's your content. You consolidate the content in tutorials. And so the tutorials are pretty similar to what you would have at school. So you kind of have a class of 20 to 30 students with a tutor, and they take you through questions or they take you through the content. Where some of the subjects differ is a lot of first year subjects have labs, like Jack said. So these labs could be, chem labs, biology labs, just kind of like what you would expect from what you've had or normally would have in year 12 for your chemistry and biology units. And then as the years go on, so second and third year subjects, there tend to be less labs. It kind of depends on how you structure your degree. So I think where science at Melbourne differs from what Jack's doing is that there's a lot more flexibility. So if you want to take your degree down a more practical pathway, you can structure your course to do a lot more labs. So if you wanted to do chemistry or like biotechnology, obviously the subjects there will have a lot of labs, a lot of hands-on work. Whereas if you did something like me, where it's physiology, you still will have pracs. They'll be a little bit different. They might be, I guess, not hands-on. They might be more interactive, but it depends where you take your degree or whether or not there's like workshops and stuff. I guess science at Melbourne is a really broad degree. Like I think last time I checked, there was 35 majors, and this spans from everything from engineering to IT to your health sciences. So I'll just focus on what I did, which was the life sciences / pre-medical pathway. In first year, and I think it's the same at a lot of unis, the subjects that you have to do for each major are very similar. So you'll all do biology, you'll do chemistry, you have to do specific, I guess they call them core subjects in first year, and it kind of gives you a bit of insight into each pathway, and it gives you time more than anything to kind of figure out what you want to do. They're very broad subjects. So for example, first year bio and chem, it's pretty much a repeat of year 12, just a little step up. As you get to second year, you then have to start locking in your majors. And there's a big step to consider the majors, but a lot of the societies, so the Science Society and the Biomed Society, they offer lots of info sessions, just like this one, on the specific majors themselves, a little bit of insight from older students of what the majors entail and what the subjects are. But once again, there's like so much flexibility. You have so much time in your degree. Lots of people extend their degrees out by a year. And I think that's one of the biggest bits of advice that I can give, because like locking in something really early without having the information or the experience in that field might be a little bit of a bad mistake. But yeah, plenty of flexibility in the course.
What about you, Jack? Have you had kind of similar experiences in terms of your kind of flexibility in the path that you can choose?
I think what Jamieson said like really summarized it well, is it's like steps up. So the first year is quite broad. So for biomed at Melbourne, at Monash, it's very much like you just get a taste of everything at the start, and you do choose an elective. So the first elective you choose for semester 1 and semester 2 of your first year, it is kind of a stab in the dark. You can read the Unitas like guides, but they are very broad. So I did human behavior, just something different, not really like biology or medicine based. And it's really nice because you're not confined to just biomedicine. You can do arts if you want as your elective, and then you can move on to other stuff. So with biomed, I'm not sure how it works at Melbourne, but you don't really have a major because biomed is your course. You can have a minor through your electives. So I've taken a developmental biology minor, and you only need to do 4 kind of like classes in that to get it. But yeah, it is really nice. They set it up really well. So the like content progresses, and like your workflow, it really does flow through the years.
Yep, too easy. So when I thought about this question, obviously there's different assessment for different subjects at different levels. So generally there are 3 levels of subjects correlating with, you know, first, second, third year. What I found is with first year subjects, they are a bit more gentle with assessment. So you'll generally find you have more informal quizzes, you'll have little assignments, and kind of be approached like a SAC, almost like a little take-home assignment. They will generally be worth, you know, 10, 15% of your entire mark. Then eventually, and I think it's pretty standard with a lot of the science subjects, you'll get an exam, end of semester exam, which will be 60 to 70% of your grade. As I progress through to the second and third year, as you get into the major subjects, and when I say major subjects, what I mean is the subjects that directly contribute to your chosen major. What happened was instead of getting 10, 15% quizzes and assessments, you will start to have mid-semester tests. So that'll be something that's worth 30 to 40%. It increases in content and difficulty. It's like I'm not sure how they're running them now with everything offline, online, but back in the day, we would go in. It's basically like a mini exam where you would go in, study 6 weeks worth of content, and smash out a mid-semester.
Yeah. Jack, what about you? Have you had similar experience?
Yeah, it is quite similar. I think the difference is you have end of semester exams. Mine are weighted a little bit less. So in first year, they're around about 30, 40%. And then second year, they're about the same. And then I think the big thing is because it's quite like they're teaching all these skills. So like bioinformatics and research. You do a lot of assignments with group members, and you really do like dive deep on like areas. So even though you're kind of focusing on one area, you're learning a lot of skills through that. And that's what they kind of test you on. So you kind of have like 20% group projects. And then as Jamieson said, they kind of filter in like little tests just to make sure you're doing the lectures. But yeah, it is kind of, all the subjects are different, but that's kind of the generalized idea. So it's kind of been interesting for me because it's been all online. So that was kind of new in itself, when I'm sure all you guys here, like you've been through it. They're going to be like really set up strong, and hopefully we'll be in uni. The workflow is really good. So I reckon it's a little bit less than VCE, but because you've chosen like biomed or science, it's stuff you really want to do. So you have a lot of drive for it. I would think I was in uni like 10 hours a week. So they're kind of in big blocks of like 3-hour labs. And it's like really spread out. So for those 10 hours, you learn like your content, and then you're kind of studying at home a bit. And yeah, it's pretty spread out. So it's not as intense, but it's definitely around about the same.
Jamo, what about you?
Yep. So I won't touch on like online learning and stuff like that. I'll just focus on what it was like back in 2016 when I started. I felt like on paper, it was less work than year 12. Year 12, you're in, 9 to 3 every day. But in reality, even though we had like less classes or less hours, technically, I found it to be more work than year 12, just because everyone has different drives at uni. Everyone has different reasons for doing the course and the majors that they are. It just so happened that me and I guess my group of friends were all really going down the med pathway, and med being a very competitive postgraduate course, it's not enough just to do the work that's prescribed. You have to keep pushing yourself on top of it. But in terms of like keeping up with the content, it was less work than year 12, but there's never a stage where you can really say like, look, I know it all, because the content just keeps coming and it's up to you. And you can kind of think of it as you're not just studying it for the sake of, you know, sitting a test. You're studying it because you want to turn this into a career. And it's like almost a disservice to yourself to like stop your learning at a certain point, or to stop pushing yourself in terms of how much study you're doing. Depends for every person, but yeah, that was my experience. Yeah, so I've had a bit more time to think about this since finishing my degree. Once again, like I just want to echo how flexible the courses are and how flexible uni is in general. So on paper, what they'll say is the amount of hours that you have for scheduled classes, you should be doing the same amount of time outside of class for self-directed study. In hindsight, what I kind of learned is that you have different types of classes that are mandatory and some that aren't mandatory to attend right then and there. So tutorials, workshops, practicals, they're classes that you can't miss because they're not recorded or anything like that. Lectures, you'll have to do them anyway, but you don't have to attend them live in person. Basically, how I structured my study was I'm going to try and attend as many classes as I can that were on my schedule. I'm not going to try and leave them to watch later. I'm going to fit in however much social time and like work time I want to do that week, or that I think is appropriate. And then pretty much I would fill the rest of my time during the week with study, purely off the basis that I wanted to do med, and that kind of everyone else in the cohort was doing the same thing. And if you kind of weren't studying, then you're kind of falling behind a little bit.
So you definitely do have time, because kind of uni, you schedule it, it's on your kind of clock. I was able to like coach at Scotch, and then also I got a job at uni as well. So if you do well in your first year, you then get offered opportunities to tutor the first years for next year. So it's a really nice kind of way to combine study and then kind of revise the content while teaching it again. So through that, you're doing uni work and you're getting paid for it. So it's kind of nice. You definitely have time. Like coaching at Scotch was like all I kind of needed. And I still had heaps of free time with that, with uni work. So yeah.
What about you, Jamo?
Yeah, definitely you have time for part-time work, and it really comes down to how good you are at managing your time and how motivated you are. So I'll give an example. In my first year, my timetable, I think I had 25 hours of scheduled classes per week during a really busy week. For some reason, I like coming up year 12, I had insane motivation or like ability just to like power through everything. So I was doing, 20 to 25 hours a week in hospitality on top of all the study. So basically I had a packed schedule week in, week out. Once it came to third year, I was still able to allocate time to work. It became more of an importance to me to focus on studies. So like I tapered down work, but with that said, it depends on your situation. Like, do you want to prioritize studies at the moment? Do you want to work? One thing I would recommend is never prioritize work over study if it's going to impact your grades. At the end of the day, you're there to, study and get a degree. And I think if your part-time job starts to eat into your study time, then you're in a bit of a tricky situation there. And what a lot of my friends did, and what I would recommend in that situation, if you're finding uni pretty stressful, which it is at some points because 4 subjects a semester can get really hectic, is to extend your degree or go down to 3 subjects. Even some friends that I know went down to 2. That literally halves your amount of hours a week and provides a lot more time to work if you need the extra money, or if you just want to spend more time away from your studies. So plenty of options out there.
Yeah, so it is kind of like you just get so much information at the start. Just making sure that like they've got heaps of like networks, like we were saying, like this, like the old boys program. There's heaps of people you can talk to. There's a lot of people that have done it before. I reckon get in and do as much as you can, like join some societies, go to all the open days if there are open days, and just really kind of like get to know people, because it's so much better, because like biomed and science can be really competitive. Really just trying to make some friends, and it makes it go a lot easier.
Awesome. Jamo, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I've had plenty of time to think about this, especially like being down the med pathway. My thoughts are, in terms of advice, like you have the general advice that, you know, Jack touched on a little bit. You know, be open to everything in uni, you know, ask a lot of questions. What I would say is make sure you do something that you really enjoy, because at the end of the day, when things get tough, when exams come around, you want to have that extra bit of motivation. You want to know that, you know, the subjects you're doing are building towards something big. Don't just do something for the sake of like, I need to do this because it will prepare me for med. And that brings me to my next point, which is, if you want to do med or dentistry or, you know, physiotherapy, anything like that, it's changed so much in the past 3-4 years in terms of entry. When I started in 2016, you had to pretty much do a very specific pathway where you moved on to second year anatomy, biochemistry, and physiology subjects as a prerequisite to apply for med. Since then, it's changed where the University of Melbourne have dropped those prerequisite subjects. So that was the incentive to do science and biomed at Melbourne, was because those courses structure it towards medicine and you can complete those subjects. Now it's the case is you can literally apply for med with any degree. It doesn't have to be science. It doesn't have to be biomed. And it's a great opportunity. Like, I wish this was the case when I was back in uni. Obviously, doing a science degree or biomed degree, you'll study things like anatomy and physiology, which will prepare you really, really well for med. But like with the Melbourne model, being able to do breadth subjects, there is completely nothing wrong. If you're really good at arts and writing essays, or if you are more commerce minded, doing that degree or doing anything that you enjoy primarily, and then doing your breadth subjects in science to get a feel for it, or to you know, prepare yourself on the side, is a great strategy. And so at the end of the day, I think marks are what are the things that are going to get you into med. And so if you're studying science, but if you're studying like anatomy, for example, because you think anatomy is obviously what you do in medicine, you have to know this, you know, structure of the body and all that, but you're really bad at memorizing things, or that you really don't like the content, then you're not going to find the course enjoyable. And as a result, your motivation is going to wane and your marks might suffer. So that would be my advice. Like, just pick primarily what you really enjoy. And know that, you know, if you want to go down the med pathway, there are so many more like pathways into it these days than there was, you know, 5-6 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
I've just got so even in that, like, I've only been at uni for 2 years, and there's so many more pathways as that. Like when I joined, it was kind of, you're doing biomed and you're going straight for med. But now, and during like the courses, there's so many more opportunities to go into research, to like go into different areas, and it's really easy to like transfer. So that's why you do electives, to see if you do like other like different fields. So don't think you're confined as soon as you pick biomedicine or science. You're not. There's so many different opportunities. Just like do what you enjoy.